Welcome into our mock draft 2.0. Here is Tyler, always with Andrew. We have gotten through free agency. All these big moves are somewhat finished. We just started this recording as Russell Wilson signs with my Giants, so that changes it up a bit. But obviously, through free agency, now all eyes are on the draft. That is the next big thing for the NFL season. We're excited to go see who drops, who rises, and a bunch of changes at the picks. Andrew, what are you thinking?
I think there's going to be a few things that change from our first mock draft that happened post combine. Free agency's been crazy. A lot of really interesting moving pieces. A lot of teams getting big need positions filled. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how we align compared to our first mock draft to today. But I think there will definitely be some similarities and some differences. But I'm excited. I think the QB market's been
Yeah.
crazy since the combine ended and free agency started. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to see kind of how we end up with this mock draft.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see where the QBs go. I mean, we have an idea in our heads. We've discussed it before we even got on the video, but it's like the Wild West right now. It's everyone's grabbing a QB, and even if you have a QB, you need another one. So it's going to be interesting. But without further ado, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. I have a feeling we're going to agree here, but our first mock draft had Cam Ward of Miami going to the Titans. We're going to go with Cam Ward again at one. You know, just great arm. The Titans need it. They haven't had a quarterback in a while. Ryan Tannehill had some good seasons. Marcus Mariota had some good seasons, but never a superstar quarterback, and that's what they're hoping to get out of Cam Ward.
Definitely, it's a changing of times in Tennessee. They need to figure it out. They clearly want to get a franchise quarterback in or a potential franchise quarterback in. And I think they see that with Cam Ward. They like what they saw in his tape from Miami, and yeah, I think all signs show that he's clearly going to be the 101 in April.
Yeah. Moving on to pick number two. This is where it gets interesting. Andrew, who'd we have at two last draft?
I believe we had the Cleveland Browns taking Travis Hunter in our last mock draft.
Okay, so we discussed this beforehand, and we've come to an agreement. We're going Shadur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. So the first two picks of this draft are going to be quarterbacks. Now, we weren't really sure where the Browns are going. Deshaun Watson's out for the next season, and Kenny Pickett is the only quarterback on the roster that is healthy right now. So, what do you need to do? You're kind of forced here. There are some generational talents that they could take at this pick. So don't blame us if we're wrong with this one, but Shadur just makes the most sense in our minds here. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting position to be in because, like we talked about, the contract that Deshaun Watson's under is massive, and it's such a handcuff for the Browns organization. And we saw, they had that trade Kenny Pickett with a pick swap for Dorian Thompson Robinson as well. So they don't have that many options. And to be honest, like Kenny Pickett's not that guy, and you still need depth on your roster. Granted, Pickett just won a Super Bowl, obviously being the backup, but he has that experience. Bring a guy in like Shadur, you know. I think it just makes the most sense. Again, like you said, there's just a lot of needs for that Browns organization, and they don't have that answer for quarterback. And realistically, they don't have it long term yet. And so Shadur's going to be there, and just the way that some of these other teams kind of align in probably the top 10, give or take, it doesn't seem like anybody else is going to take him. Cleveland have a free pass to get him if they want him. They don't have to worry about anyone undercutting to trade up. So I think it makes sense. I don't think Shadur will fall out of the top 10. Cleveland need a quarterback for the future. I think this is the guy that they take.
Now, the question is going to be how is Dion going to react to this? I know he was very staunch in his opinions that he is going to aid, I guess you could say, the team into drafting Shadur. And he said yesterday, flat out, he wants them to go to the Giants. But now seeing this Russell Wilson news, as we saw, that seems to be up in the air. So we got Shadur Sanders headed to Cleveland at the second pick. Now, moving on to the Giants at three. Um, as a Giants fan, there's a lot of internal argument with myself. Now, Abdul Carter, generational pass rusher. You could always use a good D line. every team that wins the Super Bowl has a great D line, and there's usually multiple rounds of players. And then you got Travis Hunter, the Swiss Army knife of a player, someone that was amazing as a wide receiver and very good as a defensive back. Two areas where the Giants really need. So without further ado, Andrew, where are we headed with this third pick?
I'm thinking Travis Hunter. I think it's the safest bet. We've seen all that we need to see out of Travis Hunter, both at receiver and corner, to know that he's going to be a star. Obviously, you and I have both kind of come to an agreement. We want to see him put a little bit of weight on because we're concerned about his longevity and if he's going to be able to play both ways consistently every game, as well as his ability to tackle once he gets into the league. But I think the biggest thing, getting in a guy that can play both ways for the Giants, is going to be important. Obviously from experience and watching them, the receiver core outside of Malik Nabers needs improvement. It's not bad, but it can be a lot better. Having a 1-2 punch of Malik Nabers and Travis Hunter could be phenomenal. And as well, we see what Travis Hunter can do as a corner too. So one of my rules of thumb is you can never go wrong improving your secondary in the draft. And so I think this is a no-nonsense deal. It gives Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, whoever gets the starting job for the Giants, it gives him just another tool on offense, and it also gives Brian Dable another, key star on defense. So I think Travis Hunter is the right choice right now for the Giants.
There's definitely a lot of boom and a possibility for bust. As we said, his frame is a little worrying, but the talent is there, and you can't deny that. So Travis Hunter is going to the Big Apple at 3. So on to the Patriots. Who did we have the Patriots taking in our first mock?
We had Abdul Carter, and in my eyes, I think we stay the same here. I think they go best available. Vrabel, more of a defensive-minded coach. We've seen outside of Derrick Henry, he didn't really need that many star powers on offense when he was coaching the Titans. So I think while there's some needs, obviously, offensively for the Patriots, I think that they can wait a little in this draft. And I think at this position, you could go with a guy like Will Campbell, improve that offensive line, give Drake May more protection. But I think they go Abdul Carter here. I think it's the only choice to me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that Mike Vrabel, as a defensive-minded head coach, someone that played defense in the NFL for so many years on so many great Patriots teams, is looking at this generational pass rushing prospect and going, nah, we need to improve our O-line. Drake may be running for his life, just like he was last season, but their defense is going to be staunch through free agency, through Christian Gonzalez developing into that corner one, and then getting Abdul Carter on the edge. It is going to be fun to watch for Patriots fans in New England this season, at least defensively. There. At number 5, we have the Jags. I believe we took Will Campbell here, and I believe that's going to be our choice again. Trevor Lawrence needs protection. It's a prove-it year for him, really. He is he might be the highest paid quarterback by year right now in this league, which is insane. He's making $60 million or $55 million, somewhere in that range. So you need protection, and then no excuses from him. They did cut a lot of weapons. Obviously, they traded Christian Kirk. They cut Evan Ingram, got rid of Devin Duvernay as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Jags offense looks like. But getting Will Campbell gives you the ability to have that franchise left tackle and shores up both in the run game and the pass game. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree. Will Campbell needs to be going to the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is coming off that gruesome concussion. We talked about it in our last mock draft. He needs better protection. Yeah, losing Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk's going to hurt them. I'm really curious to kind of see how they retool in this draft. If they wait a little and get some receivers in, what they kind of do with the tight end. There's definitely some good options available down the road outside of the first round. So I'm really going to be curious to see how that offense retools. But defensively, I think they can suffice. I think they're fine to look past the top 5 pick. Obviously, Mason Graham's a big name that's been thrown around for the Jags, but I think the protection to Trevor Lawrence is going to be more important. And like I said, I believe I said it in our last mock draft too, you want to be able to have a better offensive line from top to bottom so that you can open up the run game as well. Trevor Etienne did not have that good of Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne did not have the best season last year, so being able to get him more protection, have guys that can open up more holes for him to run through, I think is also going to be important. So I see Will Campbell going to the Jags too.
It's going to be a different look offense, just flatly said, for Jags fans. It's not going to be as pass heavy. don't see a way in which it is. But getting Will Campbell shores up that O line, which is always valuable on a team that's building towards success. So, number 6, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm just going to hand it off to our resident Raiders fan here with Andrew. Our first draft, we had Ashton Jeanty. What is your opinion now?
I'll be honest. I still see the Raiders drafting Ashton Jeanty. There's been some big moves in free agency. Obviously, the trade for Geno Smith was a shock to me. I'm excited about it. I'm fired up. The receiver room still kind of a question mark. So Jacoby Myers coming back, Trey Tucker coming back. What's that going to look like? Are we going to retool later down the draft too? Teteroa McMillan's an option, but I think we pass on McMillan. Pete Carroll's been known to be an offense that doesn't need stars at receiver, but has a dominant running back. So I think Jeanty makes the most sense. Looking at some of the other free agency moves outside of just the Geno Smith trade, we brought in Kappa from the Bengals at guard. I think that's going to improve the offensive line. Eric Stokes from the Packers was brought in the secondary. So my initial thought process with our first mock draft is that if we don't go Jeanty, we trade back and get some guys in the secondary. But we've made some moves in free agency, so I don't think that the Raiders will go secondary or trade back. So it really kind of just does come back between Teteroa, McMillan, and Ashton Jeanty, but I think they go with a generational running back, a guy who is destined for stardom in the NFL. I love his contact balance. I love his speed and his ability just to run the ball. I stand by it. I still think the Raiders take Ashton Jeanty with the 6th overall pick.
No argument from me. This guy is going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be a show in Vegas. Hopefully a lot of offense, which is something that you're not used to seeing. But hopefully we get it this year. Both of our teams. Hopefully we get some offense going with Ashton Jeanty headed to Vegas at the 6th pick. The 7th pick, the New York Jets. Tell me who we had in our first mock draft. I already know, but
we had a guy by the name of Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. And I think we're both in agreement. That is not happening now with the Justin Fields deal. I was surprised. I wasn't sure if the Jets were going to make a splash in free agency for a quarterback. I thought they were just going to play more modest, try to get other positions filled before they went and addressed quarterback at a cheaper option in that you can have on a rookie contract. Clear as day now, they splashed big on Justin Fields. They have the faith in him. So Jackson Dart not going to the Jets. Where are you thinking right now?
So I want to sit here and say best available. And in our minds, as a total player that isn't already on a stacked D-line, so Mason Graham is the best available, I'll say, of these prospects, but they don't need D-line, and that's not really where I'm thinking. You look at Justin Fields' career, there is one thing that sticks out besides his struggles, is that he's always had a decent to bad O-line, and that he loves throwing to the tight end. And the Jets, what do they not have? Tyler Conklin leaves for LA. A tight end. So then you think to yourself, what freak of nature is the best tight end in this class? And that's going to be Tyler Warren. I have many friends that are Jets fans and Penn State fans, and they were rooting for this the whole way. Shout out TJ. I think it's going to be Tyler Warren.
I agree with you completely. They have a solid secondary D-line. They have a good D-line. Overall, the biggest area of need for the Jets has to be tight end now. And it's really funny because in our first mock draft, we had Tyler Warren dropping. Yeah. But the initial thought process is that every team above where we had him going, I believe we had him at 17 to the Bengals. So every team above that didn't necessarily need a tight end because we had the Jets primarily focusing on getting in a quarterback. Yeah. So now they have the quarterback issue solved. So tight end, like you said, Fields loves to throw to a tight end. Tyler Warren's a Swiss Army knife. He can block. He can route run. He's good at catching in traffic. He's just the tool that I think the Jets need, and I could easily see him having a good career. Hopefully Justin Fields pans out so that Warren can look good for the Jets. But yeah, I agree. I think Tyler Warren will get taken at 7 to the Jets.
Don't be surprised if the Jets roll out some kind of crazy wildcat look. If they end up drafting Tyler Warren and use him as a quarterback with Justin Fields, almost similar to that Trace McSorley, Saquon Barkley read option where they would flip positions and then still run read option. I could see something like that, and that would be super entertaining, and I know Jets fans would be full in support of that. So Tyler Warren at 7 to the Jets. So at pick number 8 now, the Panthers, our first mock draft, who did we have them
We
taking?
had the Panthers taking Will Johnson at the 8th overall pick, and I'll be honest, we haven't discussed this pick yet, but I'm feeling some change. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know if Will Johnson stays going to the Panthers now. They've had a lot of secondary pickups in free agency. One to note, obviously, is more of a safety, but Trayvon Merrick
Yep.
leaving the Raiders to go and play for the Panthers. So I'm looking at it. I think it's still a potential, but I'm honestly looking more towards Tetaroa
Yeah.
McMillan now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Xavier Legette is a good player, but he's not a wide receiver one. And Bryce Young obviously broke onto the radar here this year. We did not expect it, but now you actually have a franchise quarterback. At least it seems that way. So you might as well get him weapons. Also worth noting, J.C. Horn signed a massive extension, so that's going to be the cornerback one in Carolina. He's going to take that role. So yeah, Tetmac is looking at you. He dropped all the way down here. Maybe you weren't expecting to get him. But he's staring you straight in the face as a vertical threat, a freak of nature with the ball in his hands, can take any route to the house. As we said, the only kind of knock we had on him is that he's not as shifty as some of the other guys, and he didn't play great against good competition. But I don't think that really matters for the Panthers, as they get a guy on stilts that can go up and get the ball for Bryce Young.
Yeah, and I honestly see this team becoming similar, not in quarterback play necessarily, but this receiver room is similar to Green Bay's receiver room. They're going to have a lot of young talent that's there to develop. Like you said, Xavier Legette, he's still developing. You get in Tetaroa McMillan, and then you also have an undrafted free agent or undrafted rookie free agent who had a lot of success in Jalen Coker. A lot of Panthers fans are excited about him. He had some good performances his rookie season. So that's a young, honestly, it's a young offense.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest, because Bryce is young as well. So you have a potential. It's very boomer bust. It's a big long term risk, but you have the potential to see this great young team develop together. And they're going to be on rookie contracts for the next few years.
Yeah.
So it's going to be cheap. It doesn't put the Panthers in a position where they're forced down financially. So I think it's a great pickup, and I think that's going to just give another weapon for Bryce Young to be comfortable with.
And Dan Canales, he's all about the offense. He was the OC at Tampa Bay before he became the head coach. This is right in his wheelhouse. So Tetmac is headed to Carolina with the 8th pick. Now moving on to the Saints. Who did we have the Saints taken in our first mock?
We had them taking Tetaroa
Okay.
McMillan.
All right. So this is a little bit of a shift.
Yeah. I think they go best available here.
Yeah.
I think they go Mason Graham.
It's got to be.
It's one of those, like I said, D-line, the Saints could improve on it. Offensively, they're kind of all over the place. That's a big question mark. But being at 9, I could see them trading back if they really wanted to wait for more of an offensive weapon, because the running back pool, I like Omari and Hampton. I don't think you take him at 9.
No.
And then some of the other receivers as well, I don't necessarily think you have to take him at 9. I think you could maybe trade up into the end of the first round to get one, or wait till the second. Guys like Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, Golden, they're going to be there later in the draft in the first round. So I just don't see them going that high. So that being said, I think they look to best available, and I think that's Mason Graham.
Yeah, and I think they're honestly licking their chops getting Mason Graham here, someone that was projected all the way through to be a top 5 pick. Obviously he falls, but not because he's a bad prospect or we think anything like that. More so that teams didn't really need that interior D line. The Saints do. So that's going to be the move as well. Mason Graham headed to the Bayou down in New Orleans.
I see it kind of like Jalen Carter a few years ago falling to the Eagles. He obviously one of the top talents in this draft, but just positional needs in the teams above happened to fall.
Yeah. All right. Chicago at 10. Now, obviously, they have loaded up on O-line. And I think, did we have an O-lineman?
No, we had
Mason Graham. That's right. Okay, so PFF's got their needs as running back, D-line, safety. What are you thinking? Do you have any idea? O-line's off the table. Like, there's no way.
I think honestly, outside of running back, again, I don't think Omari and Hampton goes to the Bears at 10. I think that could be a potential talking point. But obviously, safety is listed, and we had Malachi Starks in our top 15. I think that the Bears could easily draft him because, like I said, offensively, I think you're good.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to get a running back here, but again, you can wait. they have everything they need on offense. They loaded up on offensive line. Malachi Starks is a demon at safety.
Yeah.
I think just we saw some of the secondary woes at times with Chicago last season. Get a no nonsense guy in. He's gonna perform. I think it's Malachi Starks in my opinion.
I love that. And, you're kind of just banking on Caleb Williams getting better in his second year in his sophomore season offensively. Defensively, like you said, they did have some woes in the secondary. Not great. So getting a guy like Malachi Starks that can play almost any position in that defensive backfield at the top level is really impressive here at 10, and I think they're very happy with that. So Malachi Starks to Chicago. All right. Niners on the board at 11. This this is where it gets a little, wishy-washy here. They still have to sign Purdy. Their biggest signing this free agency was Kyle Juszczyk, I feel like. There wasn't really much going on. They lost Dre Greenlaw. They've lost Charvarius Ward. All these defensive pieces. What are you thinking? What's going through your mind here with the Niners?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was more confident in where we could see the direction going pre-free agency. Now I'm just lost.
Yeah.
We had them taking Shamar Stewart before, obviously before they kind of imploded and just completely cleaned house on their defense. I mean, I could see them going, if they wanted to somehow go offense and just give more protection to Purdy, they could go Membu at tackle. They could go corner, maybe a guy like Jahdae Barron. I mean, Jahad Campbell is also available. They could still go Mike Green or like Shamar Stewart as well. I'm more inclined to say they go defensive, but I don't really know. I don't know who screams at me. Maybe Will Johnson,
I guess. Like, I like that, and I do think that they're going to have to address the defense in this draft, but they have done nothing, and Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. Their O-line was good, but not great. It was deteriorating from their Super Bowl seasons. And defensively, they don't have an identity. So I don't really know where to go. I like Membu possibly, but I still think they got to go defense. I feel like they have to go defense. Yeah.
I agree. So the guys I'm really kind of between, I'm thinking either this is tough. I'm thinking either Will Johnson or maybe we stick to our guns and say Shamar Stewart again. I really don't know. This is the one that I'm the most lost on.
Yeah,
I could sit here for days and still not sure. Maybe Mykel Williams is an option as well, but maybe just Shamar Stewart again or Will Johnson.
I think I'm good with Shamar Stewart, and I know Will Johnson's a fantastic player. That's not a knock on him. But I feel like they almost stitched together a defensive backfield last year, and it worked decently, I guess. I mean, they didn't have a good season, obviously. But I feel like Robert Saleh could get something done, and they'll figure it out. And obviously, they got picks. They have 10 picks after this pick. So they have a lot of draft capital. We don't know what's going on. Free agency's not over. There are plenty of free agents still out there. So I definitely like that Shamar Stewart sticking to the guns there. Just because that was the most confusing in my mind. Where is he? Where the heck is he? Oh, okay, down here, 27 PFF. Oh wow, they think they know better.
We have him. We rate him a lot more than PFF does, but
all right. So I'm good with Shamar at 11 going to the Niners. Now the Dallas Cowboys are up. Who did we have in our first mock?
We had the Dallas Cowboys taking Tyler Booker from Alabama, the offensive guard. And I'll be honest, I could still see it. Unless you have any qualms with it, I still think they go with a guard.
So the only thing I would say is, like, they don't really have any weapons besides CeeDee Lamb. But I don't feel that these wide receivers are not good enough. But, like, there are other positions with better prospects. So I like Tyler Booker. I mean, they've had luck with guards drafting them high and drafting O-linemen high. Even Tyler Smith, which was a head-scratcher a couple of years ago, he's turned into an all-pro, a Pro Bowl tackle for them. So I think Tyler Booker is probably the move here still. Okay. Yeah. So
I agree. Again, this is where we get to the range. Maybe they could go like Amarian Hampton if they want a running back. But that one is, I think it's more of a coin flip. But yeah, get a guard in, just continue to update the O line. I think that just makes the most sense. It's the safest pick for them to do.
Yeah, I really think it. And even with like Jerry Jones, he talks a lot, but they haven't done anything to surprise us at all. Like we thought maybe they get Dre Greenlaw or something. They haven't done anything like that, so I think they're just gonna stick with a line and kind of just trot Dak out there, have Rico Dowdle in the backfield, and just toss it up to CeeDee Lamb, and that's worked for them. So Tyler Booker there to Dallas. 13. I know we had Armand Membu going to the Dolphins. I feel like we agree across the board. That's going to be the pick. Got to protect Tua. Simply put, they could always do better in the run game as well. So yeah, our man Membu is going to Miami there. I don't really think we need to describe it too much. Check out our first video if you want to see the full description of the pick. All right. With the Colts, I believe we had Malachi Starks going here.
That we did.
Okay, so I mean, I still think Will Johnson is sitting there at
Yeah.
14. I know you just signed Charvarius Ward, but I feel like you could always do better. That being said, like you bring in Daniel Jones, you have Anthony Richardson. Do they go weapon? Like what are you thinking here?
I don't know because again, I think this could easily be one of those weird picks where I overlook a player because of my own personal bias towards them. Obviously, it says tight end is their biggest need, and that's something that's just been we've talked about.
Yeah.
I could see them reaching, in my personal opinion, for Colston Loveland.
Wow.
I am not big on Colston Loveland at all. I don't see the hype that everybody seems like.
Yeah.
I don't see what everyone loves about him. I think he's solid, but I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be. But I could easily see the Colts just sitting there saying, okay, two of the guys, Malachi Starks and Tyler Warren, are both gone. They might go edge. I think an edge rusher could be a potential possibility, but obviously I think with the quarterback battle that they have, I could see them going Colston Loveland here, just being weird,
Okay.
in my opinion. But I think it could make sense. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I don't like him either. We watched this film. The guy could not block anything, but as a wide receiver, very good. Or as a receiver in the passing game, very, very good. Run after catch skills, ball skills, all of that. He's able to run all the routes. So I like that. There was always like one or two head scratchers. I feel like that's kind of the situation where you got to get another weapon for Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, and maybe he develops that blocking because their O-line's pretty good. I mean, they lost some pieces. They lost a couple of guys to the Vikings. They could go there, but I don't think at this point that that's what they're thinking. So Colston Loveland, I'll take that at 14 to Indy. All right. The Falcons, I have a feeling we had Michael or no?
We had Matthew Golden last time.
Oh yeah, Matthew Golden, that's right. And the logic there still makes sense. And I remember you saying that every year you have a Georgia player going to the Falcons. I still like that. What do you think? Did anything change in your mind?
Yeah, no. Well, so it wasn't a Georgia player. It was every year I had the
Oh.
Falcons taking an edge rusher.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
It's a possibility, and I think a guy like, edge rushers, pick them, Mike Green, James Pierce, whoever you want, could go. Same with Jahad Campbell, but I'm good to stay with Matthew Golden. I think just continue to buff up that offense for Michael Penix.
Yep. All right. So we're in agreement there. Falcons go get a guy to line up with Drake London. The Cardinals are on the clock. Who did we have in that first mock?
We had them taking Michael Williams.
Michael Williams. I still like that, but like instead of Tyler Warren dropping, Will Johnson's dropping here.
I think Will Johnson goes here.
Yeah, that's what I.
This is where I think again, it's one of those where it's just the positional need. Some of the teams who could use a corner have different areas that would be better suited for their upgrade at their pick. I think this is where he falls. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Just
All right.
no nonsense. I think he's fallen enough. It's best available in terms of corners. Obviously, PFF loves Jade Barron. I'm a little less hot on Jade compared to Will Johnson. So yeah, I'm good. I think the Cardinals take Will Johnson here.
I'm in agreement there. So Will Johnson with the 16th pick now brings up the Bengals. They've locked up their offense, spent a boatload of money. They got to go defense here, right? Like they have to. They have to. I'm thinking personally Mike Green. I think this is a good spot for him. What are you thinking? Where's your head at?
I'm between Mike Green or Jahad Campbell, but I think I definitely agree they're going to go defensive. I think the big question between those two guys, Mike Green and Jahad Campbell, is which one's going to be more long term value, which one's going to be the stud that develops by the end of his rookie contract. Because right now, as good as those two deals were, signing Jamar Chase and T Higgins, that is
A
a
lot.
massive amount of money. And Joe Burrow too. They're spending so much money, and their cap space is so handcuffed in that offense. So they need a guy who's going to instantly be successful in the league and be able to kind of hold their weight. So I'll leave that up to you. If you're bigger on Mike Green compared to Jahad Campbell, I'm okay with that. Those are kind of the two guys I'm stuck on right now.
That's tough for me because they definitely need a linebacker. But I do think, their D line isn't great. They lost BJ Hill. So that's not great. I'm gonna go Mike Green. I feel like he's the more flashy of the two, and I just think that I know it's pick 17, and that's usually where the linebackers go. But I think edge is still the move here. So I think I like Mike Green there.
Okay, I'm good with that too.
All right. So Bengals take Mike Green. Seattle, we had Kelvin Banks, correct?
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
still good. I mean,
Um,
obviously, some of it might want to go more interior, but I'm still good to take Kelvin Banks to the Seahawks.
Yeah, and in our mind, he's the second best tackle prospect. They don't have an identity except for Kenneth Walker. They newly signed Sam Darnold, but obviously no DK, no Tyler Lockett, Jake Bobo, their first wide receiver right now.
Cooper Cup.
Oh, I forgot. That's
Yeah,
on me. I forgot. But that just short passes and run the damn ball. And for that, Kelvin Banks makes sense. So Kelvin Banks at 18 to Seattle. All right.
Yep.
19, I feel like it's probably going to be the same pick. Jalen Walker, or am I misremembering?
We had Jalen Walker.
Do you
So
want to go Jihad here? I know PFF has him higher, but I like Jalen Walker better personally.
I think we stick to it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with Jalen Walker.
Yeah, Jalen, he's
Even
the
though
beast.
obviously I was just vouching for Jahad Campbell,
Yeah.
I think Jalen Walker makes more sense for the Buccaneers scheme.
Yeah, and I honestly think that Jalen Walker's just a tank. You could line him up at rush edge on third downs, and he's going to be an animal. So I really like that pick for Tampa Bay. So Jalen Walker at 19. The Broncos, man, we had a Omarion Hampton here. I love that now. I think they've set that up for this pick, Andrew. I feel like you called it before free agency started. They set it up. They're in a really good spot. I'm going to be impressed with them. Getting Dre Greenlaw, getting Hufunga from San Fran. Their defense is going to be staunch. Their offense could use a bit more, that little push, and I think Omarion Hampton gets them there. And they're going to be a contender in that AFC. I really do feel that way.
Yeah, I love what the have done this offseason, and I think it makes the most sense in our draft. Now, if Omari and Hampton goes earlier, if a team earlier in the draft picks him, I'll
Yeah.
be curious to see how they adjust and where they go. But I think right now, the way we have it, I think Omari and Hampton at 20 is a deal made in heaven for the Denver
Yeah.
Broncos.
Yeah, I love that. His power running style with Bo Nix play action pass, they are going to be dangerous there. So the Steelers now, this is really interesting. And I want to hear your thoughts on what I'm about to say. I think Jackson Dart. I actually think Jackson Dart. Now that Russ is on the Giants, even if you sign Aaron Rodgers, where is this franchise going? Like they're going to be 9-8 either way. You get DK Metcalf, you have weapons, you have a pretty good defense. Why not roll the dice here and take a quarterback?
I agree. I think it's a risk, but it's a risk they're willing to take. And like you said, even if they get Aaron Rodgers and you still want a younger guy that can develop under them, our frame of reference, obviously, Dart was gone in our first mock draft by this point anyway, but we are still under the assumption that either Russ or Fields was going
Yeah.
to stay in Pittsburgh. Now that he hasn't, I don't think they necessarily need to go and get a safety right now.
Yeah.
We had them taking Nick Emanwari, but looking at it right now, yeah, I mean, if Omarion Hampton was available, that could be a consideration because Najee Harris is obviously no longer on the team. What do they want to do with Jalen Warren? But I think they go Jackson Dart here. I think it's going to be definitely one of the draft picks to kind of keep your eye on. It's either going to make or break. Obviously, they have a pretty solid offense now that they got DK in, so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think they take a risk on a quarterback here.
I do think that's going to work. I think that I see. I don't want to, glaze Jackson Dart here, but I see flashes of what Aaron Rodgers does in his game, if that makes sense. So I think that that would be a pretty good teaching moment. Obviously, we don't know if Aaron's going to be a Steeler yet, but I do like Jackson Dart for Pittsburgh. The running back situation is going to be interesting, but we have such a deep running back class that I don't think it really matters. I think they could just scoop one up in the second, third, fourth, what have you, and they'll get a pretty good guy. Maybe Cam Scatterboo or something like that. Got my Devils shirt on, but Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh. Oh man, put that future in. All right, 22, the Chargers. Who did we have in the first mock?
We had them taking Derek Harmon from Oregon. I could see that, but obviously now with Bosa leaving to go to the Buffalo Bills, I could see a guy like Mykel Williams from Georgia.
Yeah, I think that fits better, only because they need that flashiness on the edge. Just simply put, on the other side of an aging Khalil Mack, I love that. The new guard takes over, Mykel Williams. We're high on him. I loved his tape. And obviously, we haven't mentioned it. We mentioned it like 7 times in the first mock. James Pierce, personality problem. Just simply put, of those guys, we have Mykel Williams at the top right now. So, yeah, I like Mykel Williams there.
Yeah.
All right. On to Green Bay. Who did we have?
We had them taking Jahdae Barron, and I stand by it. I still think it's Jahdae Barron. Yeah. Obviously, the big question mark when we had picked him was that what's going to happen with Jair Alexander. I think still at this point it doesn't really matter. I think they go corner. Yeah. Eric Stokes going to the Raiders. Just get new fresh faces in. I don't necessarily think they need to panic on getting an edge rusher right now. They could go for Pierce, but again, I think they're more towards corner and receiver. I don't necessarily see it as a need. It's a young team.
They're simply solid. I like Jahdae Barron here because it just adds to it. If Jair gets moved or not, I think the likeliness is heading towards not. But he'll be a good supplemental corner. And he could play some safety as well, which would help them. Obviously, they have Xavier McKinney still, but Jahdae Barron there to Green Bay. All right. The Vikings at 24. Jahad Campbell, correct?
That's who we had in our last pick. I might switch and have him taking Derek Harmon, though.
Okay. Why do you say?
I just think more, again, linebacker, get it in. I liked our rationale, and I still think it's fair for why we had him going to the Vikings. But I think right now, I think Derek Harmon's a better fit. And I think that was the thing is we had him getting picked up before, so they went with the best available.
Yeah.
I think they go Derek Harmon here.
Okay. I like that. They definitely do need help inside, so I agree with that one there. Jahad Campbell, great player. Whoever gets him is going to get a stud, but he falls here as we go with Harmon to Minnesota. All right, Texans on the clock. They've traded Laramie Tunsil to Washington. In my heart of hearts, I still think Emeka goes here, but it is just, it's so glaringly obvious that they need O-line. It's so obvious.
Yeah, I'm torn because obviously they got Christian Kirk in free agency, so that's another piece. But they're still without a lot of weapons due to just injuries. It's Christian Kirk and Nico Collins that are healthy this season. Obviously, I don't know I don't think, to my knowledge, Diggs has gone anywhere yet, but I don't think he's going to re-sign.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, I think it's between Ibuka and maybe like Gray Zabel or Josh
Simmons. I do think that is interesting. One of the guys that we said that could be the best tackle in this draft, but also could be really bad because of the injury concerns and his film wasn't that great, but athletically he's the best. I like Josh Simmons here. I mean, the Ohio State connection's still there. They need a guy. Gray Zabel isn't as flashy as Simmons, and that's kind of why I have the Texans leaning that way. Plus, I'm sure CJ Stroud's going to put some input in there. So
Yeah.
Josh Simmons to the Texans here. Okay. All right. Rams are on the clock. Who do we have?
We had them taking Josh Simmons in our last mock
Okay.
draft. I think they either go Eamon Warrior or Jahad Campbell here.
Yeah.
I think they go on the defensive side. Their defense pretty solid last year, especially that D line. So I think kind of looking more towards the linebackers or the corners. They might splash on a receiver now that Cup's gone. I don't think so here. I think it's really between Jahad Campbell or Nick Eamon in my opinion.
Oh man, I feel almost criminal letting Eamon Wari drop here, but I feel like Jihad is more of the sure thing. If you get what I'm saying, like Nick Eamon Wari is a freak of nature, but Jihad Campbell is consistent, and he has been his entire Alabama career. So I like Campbell there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so Jihad Campbell to the Rams. Now the Ravens, I'm still good with our original pick. It was Trey Harris, correct?
I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, they got D Hop, but I still feel like they need more. There isn't many needs that they have except for wide receiver, so it wouldn't really hurt to get another guy in Trey Harris that can run the routes, be a deep threat, with Hopkins and Zay Flowers kind of running the underneath routes. Hopkins is a great wide receiver, but he's obviously aging, so I think Trey Harris would really be the guy that Rashad Bateman hasn't been for this offense. No offense, Rashad Bateman, but Trey Harris to the Ravens there. All right, the Lions. Who did we have originally?
We had them going with Walter Nolan, D-line from Ole Miss.
Okay, I like that, but also Nicky Manwari is still on the board.
I don't think they go secondary though.
Okay.
I think their secondary is fine.
Okay.
I'll be completely honest. That's just I don't think that's an area, because you get guys like Terrion Arnold and who's young, he's still developing. So I'm not seeing Dan Campbell panicking and getting a guy in the secondary. I think just continue to buff up that D line like we talked about. That's just the way I see it.
All right, I agree with that. Walter Nolan, great run stuffer, just a big body inside, take up multiple gaps, which is what they need. Washington, this pains me, but they're not going Ravel if Nicky Manwari's on the board.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
I think Nick Eman, especially because Jeremy Chin going to the Raiders, they lose one of their starting safeties. I think it makes the most sense. And maybe some of me not taking Eman Wari with the Lions was just to justify this pick, but I think right now it is screaming at me that Nick Eman Wari will be.
Oh man, I'm so afraid of what they're building in the district, man. Our very close friend Brody, huge Washington Commanders fan. He's been up in our faces, or my face specifically, about them, and they've really built something great to where they don't have too many needs. And Nicky Manwari, just weapon X, physical, come down in the run game, just physical, just freak of nature. Yeah, no brainer here if he drops that far. So Eman Wari to the Commanders. Oh, that stings me. All right. The Bills. Who do we have with the Bills?
We had them taking Mike Green.
Mike Green. Okay.
Draft.
So they get Bosa. So that kind of fills it there. Are you still thinking edge here? The top on the board, or James Pierce, Scruton?
I think their D line is set right now.
Okay.
I don't think they're looking for an edge rusher or just anyone in general on that defensive line. I think a corner or Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, the linebacker, I think are shouts. I could maybe see Trey Amos, perchance.
Yeah, I like Trey Amos, but I like Trey Amos. I like that pick actually. We were higher on him than most. I really like his skills, and we have 3 Ole Miss Rebels going in the last 4 picks, so I like Trey Amos there. Demetrius Knight will be a stud somewhere, wherever he gets drafted. Casey on the clock. Zabel, I think, is still the shout.
I think it's still Gray Zabel, yeah.
Yeah, so, excuse me, sorry. There you go. So Gray Zabel, get that tackle. They lose Tooney. They just need to retool at the O-line, and they'll be back. It's still Mahomes magic, so Gray Zabel there. And then to end out the first round, I feel like it's going to be the same pick here.
Yeah, it's James Pierce.
They look into a guy that should have been a top 15 pick on the edge. They lost a lot of defensive pieces, and they said they're going to address it in the draft. So, you got to jump at something like that. James Pierce, personality problems. Somehow I think they're all going to magically disappear, and then he's an all pro for the next 10 seasons because that's just how the Eagles do it. But James Pierce to round out our first round here. Again, I'll show the full screen, and then we can kind of go in. Oh, oops, ad. Here we go. There it is. That's our full mock draft 2.0. A lot of changes, a lot of differences. We'll probably do one, maybe two more before the draft. It's really going to be exciting. A lot of surprises. Even I didn't think that the draft was going to go this way. What are your thoughts after going through this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely. Obviously, I'm confident in our ability to kind of read players and to make mock drafts. I think there's some question marks. Obviously, like a guy like James Pierce specifically,
Yeah.
he's a guy that we have our own personal biases and how we evaluate players. Teams might overlook that attitude issue, and he might go higher.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of mock drafts from other people that have him a lot higher than we have him. So that's a guy. I think there's a couple positions that are interesting. I think one of the ones that, like I said, we struggled with just going through it was the Niners. So I think there's a few teams that it could really go anywhere. But I like our mock draft. I think it's pretty solid, and I'm confident in a lot of the picks that we have put together.
Yeah, I like it too, and it makes for an interesting first round. I'll say that at the very least. It's going to be exciting to see all the buzz and the rumors heading up to the draft and what happens at these prospects pro day. I know a lot of people were freaking out about Cam Ward, but I want to remind everyone out there the pro day means jack. Zach Wilson had the best pro day in NFL history. I watched Cam Ward's. It was super impressive, but it was eerily similar to what Zach Wilson did. Now, I'm not saying that the prospects are comparable, but it is interesting. So don't get too hyped up, guys, before the draft. Really look into the film. The game film is going to really show you the true story of the prospects. With that being said, this has been our Sideline Signal mock draft 2.0. Thank you, Andrew, as always, for coming on. I am Tyler. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on TikTok at Sideline Signal. We'll keep up with this content. Kind of the dead season for college football, but we'll be getting back when we can. And thank you guys so much for watching.